Sarah had always waved at Mrs. Chen across the street, the elderly woman who sat by her window every evening at precisely 6 p.m. For 15 years, this ritual had been as constant as the sunset. Mrs. Chen would wave back, her wrinkled hand moving slowly behind the glass, and Sarah would feel that small connection that makes a neighborhood feel like home. When Mrs. Chen died, Sarah attended the funeral. The house sold quickly to a young couple who worked long hours. Sarah missed her old neighbor, but life moved on. 3 weeks after the funeral, Sarah was making dinner when she glanced out her kitchen window. There, in Mrs. Chen's old window, sat a figure. The silhouette was unmistakable, the hunched posture, the way the head tilted slightly to the left. Sarah's hand froze mid-wave. The figure waved back with that same slow, deliberate motion. Sarah blinked hard. The window was empty. The next evening at 6 p.m., she was there again. Sarah called the new neighbors, her voice shaking. "Is someone staying with you? An older woman?" "No," they said, confused. "We're both at work until 8. The house is empty." Sarah stopped looking at the window. She closed her curtains at 5:30 p.m. every day, but she could feel it, that presence watching, waiting for her wave. One evening, her daughter visited and yanked open the curtains. "Mom, it's so dark in here." There she was, Mrs. Chen, clearer than ever, pressed against the glass. Her mouth was moving, saying something Sarah couldn't hear. Her wave had become frantic, desperate. "Do you see her?" Sarah whispered. Her daughter saw only an empty window. That night, Sarah's doorbell rang at 6 p.m. exactly. She looked through the peephole and saw nothing. When she opened the door, there was a note on her doormat in shaky handwriting she recognized instantly. "Why did you stop waving?" Sarah moved out the next week. The new family that bought her house seemed nice enough, but sometimes, late at night, Sarah still gets texts from her old number, the one she canceled. They're always the same. A photo of her old kitchen window, taken from across the street, with a single word: wave. When the Hendersons moved in next door, Marcus thought they seemed normal enough. Quiet family, kept to themselves, always nodded hello. The only odd thing was their basement door, visible through a side window that faced Marcus's driveway. It had 7 deadbolts running down its length and what looked like scratch marks gouged deep into the wood. Marcus mentioned it casually to Mr. Henderson while taking out the trash. "That's some serious security on your basement door." Mr. Henderson's smile vanished. "We don't have a basement." "But I can see the door from my—" "We don't have a basement." Mr. Henderson walked away quickly. Marcus checked the county records. The house was built in 1952, single story, no basement. But that door was real. He could see it every time he got in his car. The scratching started 2 weeks later. Around 3 a.m., a sound like nails on wood would wake Marcus. It seemed to come from underground, from the direction of the Hendersons' house. He pressed his ear to his bedroom floor and heard it clearly, desperate, rhythmic scratching, and something else. Humming. A child's voice humming the same 6 notes over and over. Marcus researched the property. In 1967, the previous owner's daughter Emily had disappeared. She was 8 years old. They searched for months. Her parents insisted she'd been playing in the backyard before vanishing. The case went cold. One night, Marcus saw Mr. Henderson through that side window, standing in front of the basement door. He was just staring at it, motionless, for over an hour. Then, slowly, he began unlocking the deadbolts. 1, 2, 3. Marcus called out, "Stop! Don't open it!" Mr. Henderson's head turned towards Marcus's voice, but his hands kept moving. 4, 5, 6. The scratching from underground became frantic, violent. The humming turned into words. "Let me out, Daddy. Please let me out. I've been good. I promise I've been good." Marcus ran outside, but Mr. Henderson had already opened the 7th lock. The door swung inward,
revealing only a solid wall behind it, brick and mortar, no basement, no stairs, nothing. But the scratching stopped. So did the humming. Mr. Henderson turned to Marcus with tears streaming down his face. "She's quiet now. She's finally quiet." He closed the door and began relocking the deadbolts. "It'll start again in a few days. It always does. But we can't leave. Every time we try to move, the scratching follows us. The door appears in every house." The Hendersons still live there. Marcus has gotten used to the scratching. He wears earplugs now. But sometimes when he's getting into his car, he sees small handprints appear on that basement door from the inside, pressing against the wood as if testing its strength, and he wonders how much longer 7 deadbolts will be enough.
The Rutherfords threw the most beautiful garden parties. Their backyard was immaculate, roses in impossible colors, hedges trimmed into perfect geometric shapes, and a fountain that sparkled even at night. They hosted every Saturday evening from May through September, and everyone on Maple Street was invited. Everyone except the Kowalskis. "It's nothing personal," Mrs. Rutherford said when Linda Kowalski asked. "It's just that our parties have a very specific guest list. Tradition, you understand." Linda didn't understand. The Kowalskis had lived on Maple Street for 3 years and had never been invited once. She could hear the laughter, smell the catered food, see the lights twinkling through the fence. It felt deliberately cruel. One Saturday, Linda's curiosity got the better of her. She climbed onto her shed roof and looked down into the Rutherfords' garden. The party was in full swing. Dozens of people in elegant clothes mingled around the fountain. But something was wrong. No one's mouth moved when the laughter came. Everyone's eyes were too bright, too fixed, and their movements, they were slightly off, like poorly animated mannequins. Mrs. Rutherford stood at the center, turning slowly, watching her guests. Linda ducked down, heart pounding. When she looked again, Mrs. Rutherford was staring directly at her with a smile that showed too many teeth. "Linda," Mrs. Rutherford called out, her voice carrying impossibly far, "how rude of you to spy. If you wanted to come so badly, you should have just asked properly." "I did ask." "No, dear, you asked with words. You need to ask with intent." Mrs. Rutherford gestured to her garden. Everyone here asked correctly. They wanted so desperately to belong, and now they do, forever. Linda looked closer at the guests. Their elegant clothes were decades old, styles from the 1950s, 60s, 70s. Some of the faces looked familiar from old neighborhood photos in the library archives. People who had moved away, according to records. People who had disappeared. "The garden needs feeding," Mrs. Rutherford continued. "Good guests make such excellent fertilizer. That's why my roses bloom in colors that don't exist. That's why my parties never end." She took a step toward Linda's fence. "Are you sure you don't want to join us? The initiation is simple. Just step onto my property after sunset with the sincere desire to belong. The garden does the rest." Linda climbed down and ran inside. She locked every door, closed every curtain. The next Saturday, the Johnsons from 3 doors down didn't come home from the garden party. Their car sat in their driveway for days before someone finally called the police. The police found nothing suspicious. The Johnsons had simply vanished. Their house sold within a week. The new family seemed thrilled with the neighborhood, especially when Mrs. Rutherford personally delivered a garden party invitation on their first day. Linda watched from her window as they accepted, smiling and nodding. She thought about warning them. She even walked to her door, hand on the knob. But Mrs. Rutherford was watching her from across the street, standing perfectly still in her own doorway, waiting, that terrible smile on her face. Linda stepped back from the door. That Saturday, she heard new voices in the garden, the new family, laughing that strange, immobile laugh. And underneath it all, if she listened carefully, she could hear screaming, muffled
desperate, coming from underneath the roses. The Kowalskis moved out the next month, but sometimes Linda still dreams of that garden, those two bright eyes, and Mrs. Rutherford's voice calling to her. "You can't leave, dear. Once you know about the party, you're already a guest. You just haven't arrived yet." Linda lives in an apartment now, 5 states away, but last week, an invitation arrived in her mailbox. Thick cream paper, elegant script. "You're invited to our annual garden party. RSVP not required. The garden remembers you."